Welcome, Jet fans, to another episode of the Jets Life podcast. I'm your host, Anthony. Just wanted to start off by first apologizing for the fake background in the background here. As you all may know, I've been kind of offline here for a few months. Me and my family going through some life changes around this time. So as a result of that, I'm not at liberty of really showing what's behind me. We're kind of in a mess transitioning between homes. So it's going to be a little bit of a transition over the next couple of months as we kind of work our way into the new house. So I appreciate and apologize again for the troubles here, but got a nice little Jets background. I'm going to try and change it up for you guys each of these episodes, so it's not the same background, although the skyline in the background is pretty awesome to look at. There's probably some other better options out there too. So I'll try and mix it up here in each of these episodes as we kind of move and grind towards the regular season, which getting closer and closer, regular season being just about 23 days away from the start of the regular season. And we have another preseason game coming up this weekend. This weekend's preseason game, and I guess fitting that we have the New York skyline in the background, Jets versus the Giants. They've already had a couple of joint practices this week, which we'll get into a little bit in detail. But in a nutshell, as we kind of work our way to the second week of the preseason, I labeled this and kind of put in my comments here a little bit. Is this a big test for Aaron Glenn? Obviously, we're not going to remember a second preseason game in Aaron Glenn era. Hopefully, this isn't something that we go back to and remember too much. But as a result of these joint practices that the Jets have had over the last 2 days, you kind of got the gist that the Giants' defensive line and the defense as a whole won the show against this Jets offense. I think a big first test for this team, a team that really hasn't gone against adversity under Aaron Glenn, nor should they have. It's only been preseason and training camp to this point. But a couple of days of the offense getting smacked around against the Giants' defensive line, you'd like to see, there's no game plan happening for the second preseason game, but they understand what has happened in the joint practices. They understand Brian Burns had his way a little bit with the offensive line against Membu. They understand Abdul Carter is a menace. They understand Dexter Lawrence is a beast in the middle. They understand the Giants have Kayvon Thibodeau, who had some comments out there, which good player and all. I like Kayvon Thibodeau, but he's not necessarily the player that you kind of should be talking his mouth too much. Giants drafted him top 5, top 6, whatever it was that they picked him to be an elite pass rusher, and he hasn't been that yet. 10-sack season, but last season had a little bit of a drop-off. But nonetheless, Giants obviously see defensive line as being in need, a position that Kayvon plays, which is why they drafted an elite player in Abdul Carter with a top 5 pick. But nonetheless, Jets versus Giants this weekend, I think that's probably going to be like one of your biggest key takeaways here is, a couple of days offensive line getting beaten around a little bit against this Giants defensive line, and can, Aaron Glenn, Tanner Engstrand, that combination, figure out a way of, putting these tackles in better positions, chipping the edge rushers, handling the Giants defensive line. Because, with the skill players that the Giants have on that defensive line, it's probably going to be one of the top tier defensive lines going into the season, and by year's end. I think the Giants are a team that, based on what that defensive line can do, are a team that kind of, I wouldn't say strikes fear, but they're a team that probably could win more games than expected because of a strong defense. Now, a lot of questions on what that offense could be with the quarterback situation. They did draft Jackson Dart. They have Russell Wilson over there, so a lot of questions there. But I think the Giants are a team that, based off the defense alone, could surprise some people and win more games than expected. But regardless, Armand Membu, obviously Olufashinu, they're gonna have the work cut out for them in this game against the Giants pass rushers. It's I'd like to see what we've been reading about, what's been said over the last couple of days in training camp and in these joint practices. Again, it's practice. Things are going to get called out a little bit more frequently than you would see in a game, just because of the fact that they're practice reps. They're different than game reps. There's not as much help, not as much chipping and stuff like that. It's just one-on-one type of situations. And the way the NFL is built at this time of day is that elite pass rushers are supposed to win one-on-one. That's just the way it's going to be. And the Giants have some pretty elite pass rushers on that defensive line in Burns and Abdul Carter. So it comes down to what if these offense tackles and if the Jets kind of put some sort of game plan together where they take what they've learned over the last couple of days and use that as a way of getting, moving in the right direction. Because, week one of the preseason was an awesome thing to see. The offense was able to move the ball down the field. The backups came in, kept it rolling. And then obviously as it kept rolling, the Packers did not much. The Jets offense kind of led the way. And that running game specifically was able to capitalize on really, a Packers team that played their starters for a couple of series, and the Jets had positive yards in both those possessions. So you like to see that continue. And, based on what you read this week, it sounds like, we're getting ready for, Jets offense to kind of go back to what we've seen in the past. But I have a little bit of faith in what we've seen out of that offense in the first preseason game. Have a little faith in what, if you just look at what Tanner Engstrand has been able to kind of put together. Got Dane in the chat. Appreciate it, Dane. Yeah, I don't know if you caught me early in the chat, but it's been kind of a crazy off season for me. Family's in the process of buying a house, selling our house. That's why we have the weird background in the background here. But yeah, glad to be back as we're kind of gearing our way towards the regular season. And Dane, thank you for joining. Appreciate you. But yeah, as I was saying, the Jets defensive line, Jets offensive line, you'd like to see him build off of what we saw in that first preseason game. Braylon out had a couple nice runs. The player I'd like to see taking a step, and it's funny that Dane's in the chat. I see him on there talking about Breece a little bit. But Breece has got a lot of flack over the last couple of weeks just based off his role in his offense. You'd like to see him take a step further. I don't necessarily know that the vision that Breece Hall has is a major issue. We saw his vision in his rookie year being, a home run hitter. Like to see that progress. But yes, he hasn't been that same player, but he's also been stuck behind an offensive line coach that was really not putting the best foot forward. The run game coordinator and Keith Carter last year, it just wasn't it. A lot of the reason why the Jets were not successful last year was because of the failures of that run game. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers having that ability to change plays, changing out of run plays, changing out of pass plays pretty consistently. But I think that has more to do with Breece's, downtick over the last couple of years than maybe his skill set on his own. I'd like to see behind a true, offensive line that's basically stacked 1 through 5 and even has a 6th player in Myers that seems pretty solid. I think the Jets are in the best position that they've been in on the offensive line in really just like, it's been quite some time. The Jets have had 5 to 6 offensive linemen that you can trust. I don't want to go back and say as far as 2010, but we've had some bad offensive lines since really 2014-ish. It seems like just poor offensive line play has been a major problem. And the Jets are going to go into the season with a solid running back, a player that we all loved after his rookie year, felt pretty confident, player that came back from that ACL injury and had a huge game against Buffalo. It's just one thing left to another. This coaching staff that he was playing behind and offenses specifically, they just weren't doing their job. And you'd like to see this team take a step forward. You're going to see a little bit more of the stars in this game, I would assume. Generally, the trend is that the offense plays 1 or 2 series in the opener. Then in the second game, usually plays about a quarter and a half to a full half. I'd like to see this offense play as much as possible. We saw something solid, but we only saw 1 drive. I'd like to see him have a successful drive and then come out and see what the defense does to change things up, and can they rebound? Can they take a punch in the mouth and then rebound off of that? Just something you want to see moving forward. But I think that's probably the biggest matchup we're going to go into this first or second preseason game is Jets offensive line. Really, the offensive line as a whole. I called out the tackles specifically because they're Giants edge rushers, but can't count on Dexter Lawrence. He's a solid interior force. So Vera Tucker, Joe Tippmann, and Myers are going to have their hands full in the inside as well, going up against the Giants interior. But going into this game, players I'd like to see kind of produce, and I'm not even sure if he's even playing. But the way this Jets offense has been built is obviously with Justin Fields, obviously bringing in Engstrand, who came over from the Lions. They utilize their tight ends pretty significantly. Justin Fields, you can look at his track record. Cole Kmet, when he was there, was a big time player. Got a bulk of receptions from Justin Fields. Got a lot of receiving yards out of Justin Fields. There's enough facts and enough stats behind the fact that Justin Fields favors the tight end. So you'd like to see a situation where Mason Taylor. He came back this week, played pretty solid. Had that nice catch that's gone a little that the Jets social media team had posted. But like to see what Mason Taylor does as a debut, really, if this is his first coming out. They might take it easy on him. They may not even play him at all. But obviously the Jets, even looking at one preseason game, you can tell that they're going to use those tight ends and use them pretty frequently. You had Stone Smart catching a touchdown, and the fullback obviously was a big key contributor to that opening drive touchdown. But if he's playing, Mason Taylor would be the guy I want to keep my eyes on to see what he has. It would be his first start. Skill position player. The Jets are severely lacking somebody you look at as a secondary option from a receiving threat standpoint. I was on Twitter the other day and I was conversating with I forget who it was, but we were conversating back and forth on the, really where does this Jets team go as a second receiver? And Mason Taylor kind of, you look at the team and unless Arian Smith takes a major jump in his rookie year to being that secondary guy, it's probably a lot to ask for out of a guy that was picked in the fourth round and projected to be even later than that. Jets kind of accelerated there with their pick of him just because of his speed. But you look at the team, and if it's not Breece Hall, who has been a key guy from a target standpoint in the Jets offense over the last few years, if it's not Breece Hall, it's got to be Mason Taylor, really, as of right now, as your guy you would think is probably going to get the second to most targets on this roster. It's not going to be Allen Lazard, Reynolds. All those players are probably going to play they all have the same role more or less, and they're going to kind of treat each other in and out. I don't even know if Allen Lazard makes the team, to be honest. I think the Jets might eventually, because of his injury, release him at some point. They got to pay him no matter what, and I just think he's blocking up a roster spot for some of these other receivers that maybe the Jets would like to keep around. But you look at the receiving depth chart and add that tight end group to the mix and the running backs, and you're probably looking at a situation where Garrett Wilson leads the team in targets. That's the obvious one. And then behind him, it's, pick your poison between Breece, Mason Taylor, and really Arian Smith being the guys you would kind of project. Again, Arian Smith may not even be on that list, depending on how long it takes for him to kind of get to speed. But I think Mason Taylor is a pretty good pick if you're just kind of go off the cuff on who's going to be the second player in targets. And then again, you look at what the Lions did with Laporta over there. Was a major contributor as a rookie with the Lions a couple of years ago while Engstrand was there. So obviously a team that favors the tight end position knew how to use them in the passing game. Mason Taylor being a player that was a big force at LSU as a tight end with all those receivers there. So like to see that if the Jets can figure out a way to use him, he's a guy you could look at this season and say, okay, he's our second best receiver, and he doesn't even play the position. Moving over to the defense, players to watch. We're kind of with Sauce's injury, with Quinn's injury. I don't envision the Jets putting them out there in a position where they could, get injured or further hamper whatever injury they do have. I think it's a situation where the Jets just let them rest out and kind of go with what they have. a lot of players in this defense that I would love, that we'd love to see week in and week out. Quincy Williams, Jamie Sherwood, Cisco, Michael Carter, the list goes on and on of players we want to see. Will McDonald, but a player that just that I just want to see take a step forward, especially because he's kind of on the cuff of whether or not he's a starter or a second player. And I think, I mentioned this back when we drafted him. I think Malachi Moore is eventually going to be a starter on this team. I saw it more as a, start of the season, works his way into it. Tony Adams starts, Cisco starts, and then Malachi Moore eventually works his way in as a starter, maybe mid-season, possibly even sooner than that. But I think Malachi Moore, there's definitely a lot of favoritism, but not favoritism, but obviously you watch Aaron Glenn, he likes Malachi Moore. You hear it in his words. He's a player that definitely caught Aaron Glenn's eye. That pick of Malachi Moore was definitely an Aaron Glenn type of pick to bring him into the team. And I think maybe I was off on the timing for Malachi Moore. Maybe it is something that could happen sooner in the season than later. Tony Adams started his first season as a rookie, and he went undrafted. So it's not out of the norm for safety position to have a starter who's picked late in the draft or even undrafted to be a starter eventually in the season. But Malachi Moore, he has that DNA playing under Saban and being there for years under Saban. I think he even started as a freshman, if I remember right, when I was reading about him. A lot of positives on Malachi Moore's resume. So he's a player that I just want to see on a football field on live game day, and to see what he can contribute against another uniform, and see if he is someone that could be a potential starter going into the season. Again, when you have a player that under Saban that played in the secondary and played in multiple years, I think it was all 4 years playing under Saban, that says a lot for Nick Saban. He doesn't trust freshmen all the time, but when there is a freshman he trusts, and he was there for multiple years, someone you definitely got to circle as a potential building block for a team that could use some safety help. It's a position that I've been screaming about needing to be upgraded for years and years and years. This offseason, I feel like the Jets did a good job of addressing it, both in the draft and in free agency with Cisco, who, Cisco's still young and showed a lot of promise with Jaguars. Unfortunately, the Jaguars just, are the Jaguars just as we are the Jets. Move over to special teams here. Another player I'd like to see had a pretty solid first week of the preseason. I think by the end of the first quarter, he had 3 special teams tackles. I'm going to go on Quantes here a little bit. I like him as a special teamer. Don't love him as a corner. Maybe it's something he can develop into at some point in time. It's a great story. Player that didn't even play college football, getting drafted by the Jets, and he's living the dream. He's playing in the NFL. I just don't know if I see him as a true defensive player. Put him out there, in situations where, maybe someone goes down. That could be the case. But from a special standpoint, this guy gets down the field, and it seems like on every single punt, he's right there to make the tackle or make the play. I think on the fumble, he was down there, and he may have been the player that nudged McCall Harmon backwards to allow the Jets to recover that muff punt. I could be wrong on that as well, but he's all over the field on specials, on kickoffs. Someone that just want to kind of keep progressing, because he's gonna have a role in this team. I think that's his role as a specialist, and then maybe after a few years developing under Aaron Glenn and this coaching staff, could find his way as being a corner to some degree. I think the Jets with Stevens and Azaria Thomas probably have their 1 and 2s over there opposite Sauce Gardner. So I'm not sure Stingers gets that, finds a role there. But from a specialist standpoint, like what you've seen out of him, I'm not sure if Folk's going to be suiting up as a kicker for the Jets in this game, or if they're still going to kind of go with Mevis as a way of working their way to the preseason. But if Folk is playing, we know what he can do as a kicker, but just kind of see what just kind of see him kicking again, especially in a Jets uniform, would be something solid to see, especially as we're getting closer and closer to the season. Like to see him work that in. Got some comments here. Got Chris B. Hey, Anthony, everyone, hit the like button, support, subscribe to the channel, go Jets, show Anthony the love he deserves. Chris, appreciate the shout out. Yes, like you said, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. It's how I grow, people. So appreciate all the support. Appreciate everyone that's joined the chat. That's really all I have here. I mean, I'm happy to be back again. Sorry for being off for such a long period of time. Again, going through some life changes here. Hence the background just being the New York skyline. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to try and change it up. Each of these episodes put something different here. I know that that logo is the old logo, but supporting the true new logo here on the head. So again, appreciate everyone for joining the channel. Appreciate those in the chat. If you haven't already, like Chris mentioned, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's hope for a good game day against the Giants. I'll be doing a recap show probably on Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon, depending on how the schedule looks. Most importantly, let's go Jets. Hopefully can rebound from a poor preseason, poor practice squad, or what do you want to call it, joint practices the last couple of days, rebound and push this Giants defensive line around and, build off of a successful week one. So all I can really hope for as we kind of gear towards the regular season, this is probably the last real dress rehearsal. I don't think there's going to be much of the stars playing in that Eagles game. So this is probably going to be our last look at this team until the season starts in 23 days. But if you haven't already, again, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's go Jets.